know what life's like being a Spurs fan. That's why I got this on. Lakers today. AD, LeBron. I'm not really a Lakers fan. I want 76ers. But as you can see, I'm into basketball now. Let's start the show. Hello, welcome to PRTv, Paxton Road TV. I'm Sam Spurs for Life, and this is Talking Points episode number 89. It's all happening. It's happening again at Spurs. Let me get the banners up so we can see what this is about. Talking Points 89. It's happening all over again. What's happening all over again? Well, we've had 4 or 5 managers. Not one of them managers since Poch has finished the season. Oh, well, no. We've had Jose. We've had Mason, we've had Nuno, we've had Conte. 4 managers, I apologise. None of them have finished a whole season since 2020. That's terrible. In the house to discuss all things Tottenham. I'm looking down at the floor because it's hard. It's hard to do this sometimes. But we've got to do it because we're Spurs fans and we want to make sure we bring you the news. In the house, we have 2 of the finest from Paxton Road. Sean Hull, Darius 3K. Do you want me to stay? Do you want this like this or do you want it like that? Come on, you guys decide. I can't hear you, Mr. 3K. Can't hear you.
I'm down here on my own today. Yeah,
we'll have to see if the other 2 haven't seen during them. We'll just reassemble. Okay. I called this one. It's happening all over again. Bit of clickbait there. But we all know at Spurs, it happens all over again. I think Sean mentioned it in the comments here as well, which is a very good comment. What's going on? Oh, yeah, Darius is good. Comments. Mr. Hell put this one up. It's happening again. Daniel wants our ticket, Dosh. No manager in place. Same as before. Same as last year. You know what I mean? No different. Same as the year before. What are we doing at Spurs? What are we doing? Mr. Hell, let's kick things off with you. How are you doing anyway? How are you enjoying? You can see we've got your Paxton Road liking that. As I said, I've got my Lakers gear on. No Spurs gear on at the moment. Darius is in. What are you in, man? Oh, Nike. You like the old school Nike. So we're all kind of missing from the Spurs, but we are doing this. Sean, how's your week been? And tell me what is happening? Is it happening all over again? And for you, what's happening all over again?
Well, I'm still stunned by being in the stadium last weekend and wondering how the hell we finished up with the 3 points. In possibly the worst performance of the season against probably one of the best teams I've seen at our stadium all season. I still don't understand. I met Jodi at half time.
Judge Jodi was in the house. Yep.
Yeah, and when we were saying at half time this is going to go bad in the second half, we never prepared for what exactly was served up in front of us. De Zerbi, I think, failed his audition as the potential replacement for Conte. Who knows? Who knows what's going on? But as per usual, we've got a mess at the top of the club. It's spilled down into the fan base. We had quite a toxic atmosphere on Saturday, I would say. In the height of probably the only positive thing we saw, which was the substitution of Danjuma, by Danjuma. You had the fans calling for Pochettino to come back, and you had followed by a chance to get rid of Levy. It just kind of sums up exactly where we are, and what a difference a year makes. If you think back to spring last year, we were tearing the division up. We were chasing Arsenal down. We were looking really, really positive, and we've gone backwards significantly. And this is what's happening again. We're going backwards, and the leadership of the football club, one is non-existent, but doesn't seem to have an answer, as it always seems to be.
I just cannot understand. As I said, I can accept making mistakes. Mistakes happen. We're all human. We all make mistakes, and we make repeated mistakes. But there's certain things that's happening now which you can't get over. The same thing as we saw, putting out, they're trying to appease the fans. Oh, we're not putting up ticket prices, blah 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 blah. But they're still wanting us to settle this up before, is it end of June? I think something like that. And we ain't got a manager, and there's all kinds of names floating. Now we'll get into a bit of that in a minute. But it seems like this whole process, it's almost like by design, but surely it's not. But again, I cannot read the minds of the hierarchy. But they must look at this. They must see the press. They must see all the media. They must see all the negativity around Spurs. But yet we're in fifth place, is it? And we still got opportunities. We've got to play both those teams above us. Realistically, we're in with a shout. But as I said, I don't think it matters. To me, all that business about top four is only for financial reasons, and we'll go round and the merry-go-round. And it could be Nagelsmann, it could be company. We'll talk about these managers, and it could be anybody. This whole process needs to be cut. We need to have an idea of what this club is about. What are we actually trying to achieve? If the guy came out and said it's all about the Benjamins, you'd have to make a decision. Do you want a club that's just about the money? As a fan, as an old school fan, no. But if we're talking about, some of the new school fans, and I'm going to put Darius in that, it might be, I'm not saying this is going to be you, by the way, Darius, but what I'm saying is, we might be happy to see top four in Champions League if we can achieve that, and concerts that come there, and Anthony Joshua and Lady Gaga. And it might be the thing that this club becomes well known for all of that, and then maybe in the future we do something. But at this moment, we're not even competitive for certain competitions like the FA Cup, losing to Sheffield United. I keep going back to that. Darius, it's happening again. What's happening again for you, and how do you feel about the summer coming at Spurs?
I think whatever happens isn't going to change the inevitable for what's going to happen to this club. However, I keep saying with the right decision and the right choice of manager, it may turn things around slightly. It may slow the process that we are inevitably going to have to face. However, I think at this point in time now, we need to start thinking more realistically as fans. I think with the managers that came in, I was happy to have them, but did they fit, what it seems like a lot of the fan base really want? I'm not too sure. I understand from a point of view of style of football that you'd be annoyed. You want to see your team play well, and it is pretty indicative of the style of play. If it's attacking, you're most likely going to be in a much better position. There's not many teams like, the Mourinho's, Inter Milan and it's Chelsea's and teams like that, where even though they were very, good teams going forward, they won their leagues and their titles and trophies solidly based off their defense. So it's a difficult one for me at the moment. My mind has changed. Before, if you asked me maybe 2-3 years ago, getting top four seemed like it would be the catalyst to bigger things, which was a trophy, maybe a trophy of high magnitude. But unfortunately, I've realized now mentality from top to bottom in this club isn't to win trophies. And at the end of the day, that is the pinnacle of football. Whatever trophy you win, I've seen the way that teams like Liverpool celebrate the Carabao Cup and Man United celebrate the Carabao Cup. It's a big thing regardless of what the trophy is. It's a massive thing. And yeah, it's annoying to see these managers do well in the club and then not get the chance to kind of turn around a wrong and not get the chance to steer the ship. But I think the fan base that we have is a little bit entitled, and I'm part of that problem as well. But I think we are expecting big things, but not allowing the time properly for for it to develop. Whether that makes a difference with who we have in charge, I don't think so. But I've now realised from my point of view, talking about winning the league in 2 years with the club that we've got isn't really realistic, and I have to start from the bottom, start from the very start again, start from number one, and see if we can make the right decision. First and foremost, being the manager in the summer to at least give us maybe an advantage in the next few years. But again, is it going to make a difference? Probably not.
It's a lot to take in there, and more to discuss in a little bit. But we're joined in the house by our own Positive Vibes Pav, whom I must say that name has been tested recently, because you ain't been that positive, but we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying. Positive Vibes Pav. We're just saying it's all happening again. Loads of things are all happening again. The same sort of things. We're seeing a manager turn around again. We're seeing ticket prices, although frozen, trying to hammer it home before we've got a manager in place. We're seeing the same sort of thing. Players deciding, oh, I can't take this. Oh, it's too much for me. Oh, this manager's running me to the ground. Oh, I can't do this. And it's a cycle, you know, and no matter what manager comes in, unless something fundamentally changes, what I've been saying, we're going to have this same cycle. So we could bring in Nagelsmann, as people are talking about. We can bring in the likes of Vincent Kompany, that's who I want as a next manager, by the way. Not because he's the best out there, but because I just think that we just need to have a project. And yeah, saying that though, are we going to do a project? We've always got projects that just don't last very long. Positive Vibes Pav. It's happening again. Talk to me about how you feel about this club at the moment, going into the last, 8 games of the season, and then into the summertime. What are you expecting? And what do you want? What do you actually want from Tottenham Hotspur FC?
A lot of things, but we're a lost club at the moment. That's what we are. We're lost. We have no direction whatsoever. We're clueless as to what we want. I've said this before. We show no desire whatsoever. How do we expect to win the next 8 games if we're not bringing what we want to the pitch? It's not shown at all. It's just a case of looking clueless, looking tired, looking bored, no sense of direction whatsoever. And it's down to the players. It's down to also the board. It's down to the management. Everyone, okay, everyone's at fault here, and it's a case of it's going to be a cycle, and this isn't going to stop. From my point of view, what I want is a sense of direction. I want the next manager to have, like you said, Sam, a project. We need someone to come in with a project and ambition to get these trophies in. What we've seen from Conte, yes, he's that type of person that wants to win trophies, but we've not seen that. Okay. And that's, yes, it's down to him, but it's also down to players and the board, right? And also he wasn't going to be long term. We've seen that already. We need a long term.
Oh, no, chicken out. Yeah, we haven't gone. I see that. I just got you on solo. That's it. We're all still there. You got self-conscious. Don't be self-conscious on this. Come on.
No, but yeah, we need a long-term manager. That's what we need. So whether it is Vincent or it's Nagelsmann, I don't know, but we need a sense of direction, and I think that's where we start, is finding a project. That's what we need.
Sean, what's the project? What would the project look like for you? Because we've all got different ideas about what projects look like. For me, the whole thing needs to start from the very, very first thing in terms of this. I've talked about this many times before, the vision of the club. What is the vision of the club? Now, we saw, was it last year when Daniel Levy put in his notes before the next manager we got in, and that was Nuno, by the way. Oh, we want to do this type of football. We want to play the Spurs way. We want to do da-da-da-da. We ain't seen if there is a Spurs way, because I've kind of lost now. I know you go back to the 70s, 80s and all the rest of it, and I go back to those times as well when we looked at what football was, and we celebrated Tottenham Hotspur in European competition and FA Cups and all the rest of it, and it was glory days within reason. But it was exciting. We could see types of football. Yeah, we'd sometimes have the seasons where we'd just be terrible, but then we kind of got a bit of consistency, and we talked about, you know, the leaving, whether people want to agree or not. We have had a significant improvement in terms of our overall finishes, etc., etc. We haven't won much, but we look better as a club. but there's no vision. There is no vision. We can't just keep bringing managers in with no vision, because you don't bring the managers in to see out a project. We brought in Jose, we brought in Conte to win trophies effectively. They didn't, but there was something fundamentally wrong with the club. They weren't getting the players that they wanted to be able to do what they needed to do. And they've won stuff. So how can we dictate to them, well, we're going to get you Jed Spence instead of the player that you might want. We're going to get you Longley instead of a Bastoni because it's the what we... It doesn't work. And Conte basically ripped up the carpet and said, there you go. This is why this club isn't going to go where. So what does a project look like for you, Sean?
Well, to me, it starts with going back to that statement that Levy released after the removal of Mourinho, and saying, what is the Spurs DNA? Now, I've been hauled over the coals because I kind of concurred with the recent survey of Spurs fans with the Athletic, which said that the style of play is really important. Over the long term, people will not go and see that turgid football we've had to suffer since the appointment of Mourinho, because it's unsustainable in the modern era. I don't see anywhere in modern football a team playing that defensive, counter-attacking football and being successful. Man City don't do it. Arsenal aren't doing it this season. Napoli, who've torn up the Serie A this season, aren't doing it. They're playing progressive front foot football. And I got absolutely saying, that's what I want. Before trophies, because the reason we're not winning trophies is because we're not playing it the way that wins trophies. You've got to have the style of play. You've got to have something that will get us getting off our seats, standing up. Historically, this club has played front foot football. I can't believe last week we had 35% possession in a home game against Brighton, who are a good team, have got a good coach, but there's no way historically we should be conceding 2/3 of the possession of a game to a team like Brighton.
The funny thing is, Sean, they're not even a possession-based team. They do keep possession, but they try to. If you look at the style of Zebri, he's kind of he's continued with the Potter thing, because Potter wasn't all about possession. They was about getting the position sense, tactical wise, and using the players that they've got. He's done exactly that. Because I look at the squad, they're not better than us. On paper, they're not better than us. But yet the way that they played football at our ground was embarrassing to me. Just watching that game, when we did the review, it was like, how the hell? It didn't make sense.
Some of their football was absolutely scintillating, Brighton. And, VAR apart, they could feel themselves very hard done by last week. But that's the kind of football I want to see. I want to see, patterns of play. I want to see that there's a front foot, there's an idea. Our football is clueless at times. We were so lucky last week. And here's my positive vibe. What Burnley show, and Darius has alluded to it, and he's absolutely spot on, by the way, the right appointment as a coach can make all the difference. All the difference. Burnley went, in the words of a very famous YouTuber, dead food last season. They went down, and they deservedly went down. They put company in place, and the football they have played, they got rid of all their high earners. They had to. They started again, and a project worked, and they've come up easily. They've skated through that division. I want something like that. A coach, as Darius has said, whoever is sitting on the bench is so important. And I don't know, I think that someone's put in the comments, Charlie Big Potatoes, do we want them? If you haven't got any experience of this of this division, either as a player or as a coach. I'm not sure that you've got that. I mean, I do like the look of Slot at Feyenoord. Maybe Darius has got more of an input in that because he follows European football with more depth than I do. But I don't want to. I can't see Nagelsmann wanting to come because there's going to be bigger jobs available in the summer, and I don't. I would rather he had someone who's going to just play better football.
See, it's hard, isn't it? It's so difficult because we've seen everything. I'm going to let Darius have the next bit. Just following on from what Sean has said. If you were a project manager, what do you want to see next? Because at the end of the day, good football is what everybody wants. Good football and winning football. That's ultimately what everybody wants. As a football fan, you want to go to your home ground, you want to see entertaining football, and you want to win. We've been through this situation of having entertaining football, not ultimately winning the big prizes, but winning enough games. And that season, the last season at White Hart Lane, was a perfect example of that. Then we've got in managers, and now looking back at the Jose thing after what we've seen from Nuno and Conte, that was actually quite decent football that we played then. But when we actually had it and we were in the midst of it, it was terrible at times. And Jose, again, covered up a lot of the stuff. But now, look at what Tom's saying. Aren't I Slot to be the best project manager? I don't want another Charlie Big Potatoes. Darius, you go through some of the managers because you've got some good insight on managers abroad. And also, what do you want to see? Who do you want in position?
To be fair with you, I've not really kept up with much football. Well, I have, but I haven't really done my due diligence on his Slot yet. And I do need to look into him a little bit more. However, I think there is a slight difference between, attacking football and winning football. I do agree with what Sean says. As much as I thought, we needed to change that, it's not going to work at Tottenham. The likes of Conte, we're obviously not going to pay the money that we need to in terms of transfer fees for players to be able to let a system like Conte's work or Jose's work. I think it would have worked. I think we were as close to a final as we were in a long time under those two managers. I know under Poch we got to a Champions League final, but we weren't playing the best football then at all in that sort of stage of the season. And looking at Jose, he got to a final. Conte, guess, was disappointing, but the football towards the end of last season, to me, in the run into the end of the season, proved that if you give him more players, he can only do better. I think, like I said, Sean, as much as a manager is important, and you could talk about the managers, having a sort of, and Sam, you spoke about this a lot, having sort of a collective mentality going from the top to the bottom is just as important, because as we've seen, you can bring in Paratici, who's friends with Conte, but if he's not going to actually be able to be allowed to bring in the players that he needs for Conte to actually do what he can on the pitch and put the players out in the system that he wants on the pitch, there's no point. So, yeah, we could go for an Nagelsmann. Yeah, we could go for an Arne Slot. Yeah, we could go for a Vincent Kompany. But if we don't bring in the correct players to fit the system, if we half-arse it, and what scares me is I'm still seeing rumours of players coming into the club before the manager's even been bought, before we've even, had the discussion of what we're going to do with our director of football, because he's not even, he's got 6 days until he goes on trial. I don't really want Paratici being, the head of a Vincent Kompany project or an Arne Slot project. He's a good scout, Paratici, but he's a bit of a crook, in my opinion. And if we're going to do that, we're going to have to find somebody who's in sort of the same synergy as the manager. So for me, I don't know. I really like De Zerbi. I think what he did on the weekend proved even more why we should go for him, in my opinion. But
Darius, just saying that, and I agree with, in terms of the football, he's a perfect manager, but it's the temperament. And I'm not saying that that's a bad temperament to have. That's good. But Conte was exactly the same. Jose was exactly the same in terms of their temperament, in terms of that winning, that sort of aggression,
okay, so
all the rest of it.
I propose this to you then. We bring in somebody like Brendan Rodgers or Graham Potter, who are going to be the complete opposite of that, in my opinion, who will probably bow their head, take who they get in the market, not even mention anything, not kick up a fuss. And then we're going to become in the same situation. Okay, yeah, the football is going to be better, but you've seen how bad it can get under the managers like Brendan Rodgers and Graham Potter if you don't, provide them with the the support that they need to be able to play the football they want. So at the end of the day, I think you need somebody who's a little bit brash, who's going to challenge and provoke the board to make them make decisions. Because you think somebody like Nuno never ever mentioned anything about transfers, really. He wasn't bothered. Conte, when he didn't get what he wanted, he literally sabotaged the team, didn't play Spence, didn't play certain players, didn't play Danjuma because he wanted to prove that they weren't what he wanted. Obviously, I'm not saying to go to that extent. That's completely out of order, in my opinion. As much as I do love Conte and don't think he should have been sacked, you can't do that. You can't sabotage your team to prove your point when the stakes are so high. However, you do need somebody who's going to be a little bit more brash, a little bit more vocal if things aren't progressing in the way that they want, which is why the likes of, in my opinion, my top 3 managers would have been Thomas Tuchel. I would have either gone for De Zerbi, and then I would have probably said after that Julian Nagelsmann. Now I'm changing my mind and thinking, obviously Tuchel's gone now, it would be Kompany, De Zerbi and Nagelsmann as my top 3, because those 3 are young, progressive. And one more thing just to mention is my last comment on Arteta as well. He's evolved that system. He's evolved what Pep's done. That's why Arteta is in the situation that he is. Not to mention the fact that Arsenal have given him so much, time and a bit of freedom to get rid of who he wants. But he's evolved what Pep's done and created a more physical, more pragmatic side to it. Because if you look at the midfield difference between Pep and Arteta, it's a very physical midfield Arteta has. You look at the defence that Arteta has. Saliba and Gabriel, very physical. He's playing a centre-back at right-back. And he's got, Zinchenko at left-back, who is more technical. But there's a lot of physicality in that Arsenal team that needs to be there in order for his system to work, and why it's been so amazing to watch. So as much as I agree with the attacking football, and obviously Arsenal play extremely high pressing attacking football, there is an element of physicality that is going to be especially needed in the Premier League that we already have a baseline of, the likes of Højbjerg, Bissouma, Romero. I think there is that level of that there. We now need to pick the players around them to have that flair and be able to entertain us. And like you said, I think Arne Slot mentioned in an interview, he said that attacking football is a lot less physical and a lot less taxing on the players in terms of mentally. And I do agree with that. There's a lot of concentration that's needed with these systems that we've watched in the last couple of years, and to give the players a bit more freedom to do what they want and express themselves may, open and unlock a new level to them. So it's difficult. We need to balance it. Physicality is still important, still very important.
I'll put this out to all of you. So what I agree with everything that you just said. We need to have this manager. We need to have this. We need to match things. We need to be able to show some sort of progressive type of football. We need someone that the board is going to back in the sense of time, players, both if possible. Sometimes probably one or the other. But who's looking for this manager now?
Exactly. It's Daniel Levy show.
Sean, you might know a bit more, and Pav, you might know a bit more, because I don't, because I've just kept away. But did we appoint an interim or some sort of director of football who's from Australia or in that sort of region? Sid was saying something to me, but I didn't catch the news. I don't know, because, who's looking for the manager? Have we got anybody in charge of this director of football business at the moment?
Well, as far as I understand, it's the 2 guys that PRTv appointed beneath him that are involved in it now. Steinson and I can't remember, the guy came from Rangers, but and obviously it hand in hand with Levy. I mean, Levy has been absolutely derelict in his duty. As soon as he became aware that Paratici faced, as soon as that ban was made back in January, he should have been thinking about what's going to happen to the club, and he just seemed to put his head in the sand and let it roll on. I mean, I believe the appeal is next week. I think Darius is right. It's just an appeal against his ban. It's not actually to lift any of the charges. And given that it's been extended across the whole FIFA family, it does seem a bit strange that we've got a really important position to fill. It sets the whole tone. It has such a knock-on effect on whether Kane stays, for example, or whether we're forced to sell him. And, you know, it could be like that. I know David Clark's got some problems with Rodgers, but Rodgers was hampered by financial issues off the field as much as anything else. I mean, the owners at Leicester took a massive hit during COVID. I mean, I think their money comes from airlines, and you know nobody was travelling under COVID. So if you've got no money coming into the club, it's gonna drip through to the club, and so I'm not ruling Rodgers out. I'm not ruling Potter out. I think Potter took one step too far when he went to Chelsea. It was too big a club for him. But if you're a manager out there, are Tottenham very attractive at the moment? There's quite a rebuild to do. There's quite a few players to look at. There's a whole team coming back to Hotspur Way on July the 1st who've been playing overseas or playing at other clubs. It's you know, I'm hopeful. This guy, although he's obviously comes from Australia, that's his background. He does have a lot of experience in sports background. He was part of the City football group, so he will have knowledge of how things are done in East Manchester. And from what I understand, he has got some experience. Australia is, I mean, I know up here in Glasgow, the Celtic fans are absolutely over the moon with the job that Postecoglou's done with the team. I love him in his press conferences. He doesn't take any nonsense, and he's playing progressive football. He is playing progressive football. I never thought I'd see Joe Hart playing as a sweeper. You know, I wouldn't. You know, I would have never thought that Cameron Carter-Vickers could become the best defender in Scotland, but he is by a country mile. And I think the benefit of a coach, Conte, for me, Darius, I have to say, burned the bridges. And I thought he was a coward in the end. He was an absolute coward. He refused to play the players, as you say, because they weren't his players. Well, look what happened in the recent PSG Rennes game. Kylian Mbappe was tipped out of Jed Spence's pocket at the end of the game, had him in his pocket, and he refused to play that player. To me, that's £15 million for that.
And it's the fact that Emerson was continuously getting started, and he was, before he had his improvement, he was awful, and he was still getting started.
Yeah, I know. And but you know, who's that on? Who picks the team? The £15 million pound a year, with all his entourage as well, taking it up to £20 million. Nah.
Oh, you know, I've been thinking, managers change. We've had a lot of manager changes in the Premiership, and that's historically what happens over a course of time. There's always a lot of managers that change during the season because the stakes are so high. So I've been looking at the NBA, and I've looked at a few of the coaches out there. A lot of them, they start off as number 2 somewhere, then they go in and make number 1, but then they're there for a few years. Very rarely do you see major changes each year. They don't sack someone halfway through. Now, there's a reason for that, and this is the reason I've found. Obviously, with the NBA, there's no relegation or there's no promotion. It's franchise stuff. So there's got no danger. And if you're the worst performing team, you get the best pick, number 1 draft pick. So you can get to, and it's all a rotation. It's all about money. So that's why they can pay someone $130 million for a 3-year contract who's not even really known. And that's what I've heard recently about players getting. So you can think what the top players get. But because we have the promotion and relegation in the Premiership, the consequences are so dire for losing and coming out of the Premiership. The consequences are so dire if your team and your club is built on top 4 every season. It's a gamble. It's a gamble. But now what I've seen is because it's a gamble, we're now throwing money at managers. Graham Potter got thrown into Chelsea, but they gave him a 5-year contract, and he must have then got X amount of. He's now. What's his hunger? What's his desire for his next club? It can't be financially, but then it could be. He could be become a mercenary because he's like, well, I'm not going to last 5 years. They might let me have 18 months. They might let me have 9 months. This is the consequence at Spurs. They give managers whatever time. Conte was a slightly different because he knew he wasn't staying. That's why he said, I'll take 2.5 years, thanks, because I ain't going to see this one out. But some managers, the next manager come to Spurs, they're probably going to give him a 3 to 5 year contract, because if you give him anything less, Conte, we know that how are you going to build? This can't be a project to build, because if he does well, then it's going to cost you to keep him. And if he does terrible, it's going to see, well, you never give him enough time to get his own players in. So the pressure of having to get this top 4 is a burden for all these managers. It's a burden for any manager in a Premiership. But what do you do?
You have to take a risk.
What?
Still though, Savage, why go for the Champions League if you limp out of it like we did this season?
£32 million just to get in it, Sean. That's why. That's it.
But
I'm with you.
We were never going to win that tournament under Conte. We would have stood a better chance with me coaching the bloody team than Conte, the Champions League.
I mean,
that Milan team are no great side, and yet they schooled us, absolutely schooled us over 2 legs. And I just think, what's the point? Go for an FA Cup. The blueprint for modern football was set by Alex Ferguson. His first trophy after 5 years was an FA Cup. And ask any Spurs fan, they go on about winning mentality. Do you know what builds winning mentality? Is holding a winner's medal in your hand.
It's like we're saying the same things over. I know you said this. I know we've gone through. It's the same. But Pav, or just talk about that. £32 million. I think something like that, just to get into, or just to make it into the Champions League. X amount for getting to the round of 16. It's a lot of money. I think me and Sid kind of looked at the numbers, and he said to win the FA Cup is like 3.5 or something in that sort of region. So I can see, and that it took me a while, but then it was like a light bulb. Oh, right. When we didn't actually put out a team, we put out a team to win that Sheffield United, but we didn't perform. The players didn't care. I don't think they cared if they went out or they won that game. Darius, you was at the game. I know what you talked about the away fans, but sorry, I just want to get Pav's thought on that. Because of this money in the game now, who are we going to be able to realistically get in that's hungry enough? Because everybody in the world see what happens at Spurs, and they think, if I was any manager now, if I was even someone like Brendan Rodgers, I'd say, well, if you want me, I want a 5-year contract. But he's in his head. Brendan Rodgers knows I'm not going to be here 5 years because I don't know where he's been anywhere for 5 years, because he has that peak and then he falls off. Who are we going to get that's going to say to this, I want, apart from Ryan Mason, which could be, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? I don't know.
I mean, it's someone who can look at the club and have that sort of project and direction in their mind, that they know what sense of direction to go into with Spurs. Because at the moment, like I said, we're looking lost, right? So the next manager that we need is someone that's going to be there for a while and be able to rebuild Spurs, because that's what we need. We need a rebuild. Okay, we need to get rid of the dead wood, get rid of all the players, the irrelevant players, and start from the bottom and work our way up again. That's what we need. And we need that manager that will know what he can do, have that sense of control. Because at the moment, there is no sense of control at the club. We saw it with Conte in terms of, the players that we got and that sort of thing. So the next manager that we need a manager that can stand their ground and say, no, do you know what? I want these players in. Otherwise, that's it. Because if we don't, then it's just going to be a complete, cycle again. And that, to be honest, if I'm being honest with you, I genuinely think it's going to be a cycle. I think the next manager that we get in, it is going to be a cycle again. And it's going to go on again and again and again. Because realistically, who are we going to attract to our club right now? We're a shambles.
It's a cycle.
We are.
The manager's not going to stay long term. So this is what I'm saying about this
true.
comment here from Mojo, which I've kind of, and the reason I'll give my reasons for Vincent Kompany, it's not because he's the best manager out there, not at all. He has something to prove. He proved it at City in terms of his mentality. He's now gone away. He's going to try and prove something as a manager. I think long term, he's going to be City's manager. He's a legend there. Pep loves him. And eventually, so he's got something to prove. So bring someone in like him. If he's going to do 2 years, it doesn't matter. He's like a Steven Gerrard or a Frank Lampard. It doesn't matter if they fail. It doesn't matter. They're going to get a job somewhere else. But he's better than them two because I've seen what he's about. I've seen what that thing is in that dressing room. So this is why I want him, not because he's the best, but because he'll give what it takes and them players. Because we haven't even touched on it. The players. We've kind of said the manager this, Daniel Levy this, the board this, but some of these effing players have not been held accountable for some of the performances. Sean, we've talked about it before. Heung-min Son this season, and we have some weird things I've seen on YouTube about people saying, the stats of Son means he's still playing. He's been shocking. Eric Dyer, you can't trust him. I've wanted to trust him at centre back. You can't trust him. You just can't trust him to get you through a game without oh my God, it's Eric Dyer moment. And then that spills into the goalkeeper because the goalkeeper and the centre backs, they have to be confident in each other that we can keep clean sheets, that we can defend properly. Defending properly is not hard if you know what you're doing and you're coached right. Darius knows this because I've coached him for a long time. I know how to coach football. Don't mean so I can go to the top, but I know the basics of it to be able to get players to be motivated to work. I don't know what these players want. Is it just a payday? Is it just lovely to have Spurs lodge? Oh, we can stay overnight in a nice hotel. It's great here. After these players, that's what it's about. It's comfortable. It's nice. Emerson, I don't want to go nowhere. I don't want to leave the club. I'll do anything. I'll get £1 million worth because it's bloody nice here. They've got no pressure. They don't have to win. As Conte said, they don't have to win nothing. They don't have to do anything but turn up, put the boots on, and have nice little things on Spurs play where you got little videos of them training. What the F are they doing in training? But I'm seeing lots of smiley people, happy days, yay. But when they turn up on a Saturday against Brighton and have 35% at home, something's not right. And I've coached and I know what coaching's about. And none of these players have improved significantly that I'm saying, yeah, I've seen. And I'm talking about going back to from Jose. We could probably talk about Oliver Skip potentially. We could maybe look at Emerson has improved. But please, someone take it from me now. What are these players doing to make sure that we as fans want to go to these effing matches every week? Because I don't want to go anymore at the present time. I'm done with that. That's my rant over.
It's going to be very, very tough for a lot of us, I think. I do want to see attacking football. Don't get me wrong. I miss the times where we got to actually look forward to watching my team and I could proudly show, people how well we were playing. But at the same time, like you said, Sean, I want to win now. I'm bored of, for example, and the example I make when I say there's winning football and there's attacking football, you can get somebody like Marcelo Bielsa in who's not going to win, in my opinion, win anything at Tottenham. But he will play amazing football and you'll love it. And in my opinion as well, somebody who I've wanted, who's proven that they can win trophies at United, despite, however, them needing a lot of money, Erik ten Hag again. I don't think Tottenham fans are prepared to lose 6-3, 4-1, 5-1 in order to get a trophy. I think a lot of fans would turn off at that getting battered notion to not win a trophy. However, I wouldn't care because he's brought him a Carabao Cup and he's going to take him to the semi-final of a Europa League in his first season. So I think people need to make a decision.
Don't forget about the FA Cup. They're still in the FA Cup as well. So again, I don't care if we get battered. I don't care if we have to play awful football. As long as I see progress in the sense of we could win something. And the reason why I understand now, looking back at it, why Conte would have never worked is because we weren't going to give him, and like you said, Sam, it was unsustainable for this club anyway. We weren't going to give him the amount of stuff he needed for him to be successful. If you bring in a manager like Sean has mentioned and Pav has mentioned, who
We're going to play good football who are going to bring in young players. That's automatically going to, bring down the demand for players in their prime, players who are already ready. If you're going to bring in a manager who's going to develop them, however, you have to make the right decision. At the end of the day, you bring in somebody like Brendan Rodgers, again, you'll get pretty decent football. But that some of the stories I've heard that come out of Leicester, you wouldn't want him anywhere near your club. So, and I think he's actually going to be our next manager. So that's just great, isn't it? Again, these managers who need to prove a point or who need to get their career back on track. For example, Mourinho are gonna be the attraction to Tottenham. Are going to be attracted to Tottenham. So that's why it's going to be difficult for me to see somebody who's hungry come into the club, because the club isn't hungry. So we're going to attract what we are, and that's just steady Eddie, mediocre. Get over it, get through it, and that's Brendan Rodgers or Graham Potter. That's, if I'm talking about who I think is going to be manager, that's my top two, unfortunately, because they fit the philosophy of Tottenham Hotspur to a perfect T. They are just run of the mill. Will just be happy that they're getting a paycheck, and that they don't really have to strive towards anything. When Potter was at Brighton, he was playing great football because, he was doing the best that they were doing in their season. He could talk shit to them because he was doing the best that Brighton ever done in their season. And Brighton fans started to get a little bit too big for their britches and realize, I saw Brighton fans complaining. I said, you could never, ever complain at Graham Potter, ever, Brighton fans, because he had elevated your team to the point where you could start talking with other clubs. So, again, he's going to fit perfectly at Tottenham. Brendan Rodgers is going to fit perfectly at Tottenham.
I'll just add to this, and the others can say something.
Yeah.
There's another manager that's, people might look at this and think, but I think he's possibly going to be up to be in the market sooner rather than later. And I don't say this because I think it's going to happen because of how he's performed, but just because they're going to have to do it at some point, like what Chelsea did with Potter. And that's Eddie Howe. Newcastle, in my opinion, are probably just waiting for Eddie Howe to maybe have a F up.
If he gets fifth, he's gone. If he gets fifth, he's gone. If he gets Champions League, I think they'll give him a chance in the Champions League.
And you're right. I agree with you. So I think Eddie Howe is on the precipice of being a manager who could be highly sought after in the summer, or potentially at some point next season if he was to make Champions League. Because it's going to be a tough season. If Newcastle make Champions League, they've got to balance everything up. We know how that is. And we know the pressure that brings. And I know what happens in that situation. Newcastle would then say, that's it, we're getting in a Zidane, or we're getting in a Luis Enrique, or we're getting in a whatever. That's what I think they're waiting. Cynical, I know, but that's how I see football, because it's been proven over many, many millennia. So he could be someone that comes up, and he fits exactly what Spurs would need. And the reason I say that is because he doesn't moan about stuff. He's very positive. He coaches players. He improves players. He seems to get on with the board. He doesn't seem to moan about the board. And players seem to respond. That Newcastle setup there.
They should be doing as well.
Joe Linton.
They've got a good team, but I have to give him credit.
Sorry, Joe Linton.
He's a centre mid now.
I'll say it again. Willock. Longstaff brothers.
Share.
Come on, man. I'm not being funny or nothing.
But then you can say Bruno Guimaraes, Alan Saint-Maximin, Alexander Isak.
They all improved.
Botman.
They've all improved.
But they're all very good anyway.
They're all good, but they've improved, Darius. We've got very good
They've
players.
also spent 200 million in 2 transfer windows.
Mm-hmm.
How much have we spent in 2 transfer windows?
Yeah, so
we've spent very similar amounts, Sean. I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah, but what they've done is they've got their recruitment right, and we haven't.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
This is the point. We haven't got that correct. We haven't. It doesn't look like we're going to get it correct anytime soon, because we don't even know if our POF is going to be there for much longer. He's probably not going to be there for much longer, because his charge is going to stick, in my opinion. There's too much smoke in that. But guys, who's going to have the appetite? Because Graham Potter, I just think he's going to have a long hiatus. He's now going to be one of them managers that will take a project. He's going to be almost like a youthful Roy Hodgson. Yeah, I don't need to.
He should go England. I think he should go England. I think he'd be great.
Agreed. I don't know. Who are we going to get? And why are we going to get that person in? As I said, I'm looking at it now.
Let's take this conversation onwards, right? Let me ask the rest of you. The return of Pochettino. Yes or no?
Pav, let Pav have this one.
Oh,
Go on, Pav. I don't want to talk about it, but I will. Darius will next. I'm after.
I was very 50-50 at first, right? But I've been somewhat convinced by some people of the return. Now, okay, there is a lot of debate around this and a lot of people disagreeing, being like, yes, he got us, to the Champions League final. Yes, constantly top 4 or whatever. Yeah, but, and, you shouldn't go back to your ex or whatever, that saying. But for me, the reason why I'm a bit like, yeah, because he knows our club inside out and he has the love for us, right? And we know that he would be there, like he wouldn't just leave, right? But the only problem is that the players, I just don't think that Poch would have that sort of thing where it's like he'd get the players that he wants and, take control over the, who we get and that sort of thing, and, rebuild. I just don't think that he could bring that to us. Now, that is a debate. But then again, he knows our club and he knows Levy. So maybe there is that sense of maybe he could take that somewhat control. I don't know.
Darius?
If you include Ndombele and Lo Celso, then 7 of the last 11 players in his last 11 are still in the squad now. And for me, that stat alone, as much as I kind of just don't want him to tarnish his own, his own legacy at the club, legacy, if you want to call it that, at the club. I just think it's a recipe for disaster that as much as everybody really wants it to happen, if it went bad, everybody's thinking about if it was to go good. If it went bad and you got 2 rounds of Pochettino negativity, it's a recipe for me. He started his last 11 or his defense was Gazaniga, Aurier, Sanchez, Dyer, Davis. This 3 of them are still starting for the team now. And then he had Son and Kane up front and Lo Celso and Ndombele in midfield who were coming back in the summer. So I just think there's no way on earth that he would do that to himself. He'd come back into Hotspur Way and he'd literally get deja vu. Thought he was in a time machine. He would have no idea what's going on because the exact same team is there. And I understand you've got Udoji, Porro, Kulusevski, players like this who are coming, Bentancur. Like, I get that. But unless I am like, you say, I don't know what you are, Pav. Did you say you like 75% now?
Yeah, 75%.
I was like agreeing with you. I was about 50-50 maybe when Conte, like, let's say start of New Year, when I knew Conte wasn't making the end of the season. I was like, okay, Poch might, know everything about the club. He'll be able to just get us going. But then the more I look at the squad and the more I realize that nothing has actually changed since he's left, I'm like, unless I know there's a mass exodus of players in the summer, I'm like 90% like the other way. I'm like, there's no chance he's going to come here and it be successful when he's still he's going to have to start Dyer. We don't have any centre-backs. So Longley's going to be gone in the summer. So we're going to literally have no centre-backs. So I just don't think that's a good idea. I don't know about how you two upstairs feel, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's going to end well both
Sean posed the question and I didn't want to answer.
Posed the question, yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to answer for it because I didn't want it. No, 0. And then it's not because I don't like Potter. Don't because I don't like Poch. There's you touched on some of them reasons. 7 of the 11 are still at the club, regardless of whether they're on loan or not. Them players have to go because they threw him under the bus ultimately anyway. They did. They ultimately did because it got too tough for them. Poch got to the end of his limit. He was there 5 years. He would never do another 5 years at Spurs. We won't give him the patience. We haven't got the patience as fans. And I'll say this for myself as well, because if we don't see anything, he's gone to PSG. He should now be making these players better. 2 years, he's not going to win anything in 2 years. If Daniel Levy's still there and those same players are there, it's not going to happen. As well as that, what's his real motivation for coming back to Spurs? You can't tell me it's because I want to win things. Because unless we have significant investment, I mean significant investment, he's not. Because he's already proven that he can improve the players, but at some point, those players that are there will say, oh, I've had enough of that. If Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte comes out and publicly say that these players don't want it, As Poch, when he was thrown under the bus in 2019, 20-ish, gonna get these players to say, "Oh, welcome back, my friend. I like when you was here. Didn't like the end of it. We're gonna give you." It's not gonna happen.
Do you remember the dreaded double sessions that they had to go through back in his first tenure? I remember that was like the catalyst for them players sort of packing their bag. And this is the thing, like, this is why the players is the main issue. Like, I get the board as the overarching issue, but these players come very, very close behind them, because
100%.
every single time a manager's been sacked, there's been some sort of BS excuse that Conte's too intense, Jose's getting boring, Poch is training us too hard. Like, the funniest thing for me was, I think we mentioned it in like 2 weeks ago, but when we did the preview for, I think, the Everton game, how Conte had punished players, or not punished players, but made players run like 2K or something, or 5K after a game. Meanwhile, Erik ten Hag was making his players run almost double after a game, and they took that as, motivation to go and do something and prove something. Whereas our players are using it as we're getting punished and this is not fair, and players are now apparently giving ultimatums, however true that was. I just think at the end of the day, these guys have got so much entitlement to say that they've won absolutely nothing. And I'm talking about every single one of them, from Lloris to Kane, all the way to the Sanchez's and Dyers. Like, every single one of them need to hold themselves accountable. They all had an opportunity to win something and they haven't. So none of them can say, like, Kane can't even say, I carried the team to win something. Yeah, you're the top goal scorer of the club. Amazing, legend. If you leave, you'll probably be the player with the most blessings of the fan base to leave. But still, you still hold yourself accountable for what's happened. You haven't won anything at the club. You're not going to leave with a silver legacy, shall I say, in terms of trophies. But you will leave with a legacy. If Kane was to leave, and let's say the next striker came in, and I don't know, let's say something crazy happened similar to Arsenal, where in 2 years we were challenged for the title, we won the title with that new striker. Yes, Kane will obviously be a legend, but there'll be a lot of newer fans and a lot of younger fans who will forget about that necessarily, not maybe necessarily forget about Kane, but forget about all of the things he's done, because that one striker's, led Tottenham to a trophy. I think that trophy is going to be very, very important for people when we actually win it. Hopefully it's soon, but I don't know.
The other thing I want to add to Sean before Sean, because you can wrap up what you think about our views. The other thing I want to say, the players as well now, and this is the players again, they've been playing a system of three at the back for the last two managers, Conte and Nuno. Now, Nuno tried to do a little bit, but he was fundamentally a three at the back manager.
He was trying to be forced to play four, wasn't he?
He tried to be forced, but he weren't working. Poch is going to want to play his style. He's not like a Erik ten Hag who's going to, you know what, I ain't got the players I've got here, so I'm going to try and do what I can do to win. Poch is going to say, no, and he's going to be like them others, and he would do, because if you're coming back and Danny Levy has taken the bite and the bit in the bullet to say, I want you back, he's in a position of power. So his position of power, if it was me, would be, right, I want to play the way I want to play. I want to play four at the back. Most of them players now are not suited, in terms of the defenders, to playing four at the back. We have got wing backs now. We ain't got full backs. We've got centre backs who can't defend as a two. They can't even defend as a three. So how they're going to defend as a two is mind blowing. Romero cannot be partnered with Dyer. Sanchez cannot be partnered with anybody in a back two. Japhet Tanganga cannot play in a back two, in my opinion. He could probably be a wing back, but I've seen his performances at wing back, right centre back. Iffy. So we're going to have to rebuild that whole back line, in my opinion, because we ain't got the players. And that's where the patience come in. Daniel Levy's going to say, well, I bought this player in. I bought Spence in. I like him. He's gone out alone. I want to use him. He's not really a fullback as such, but he could probably be coached into fullback, although he was playing fullback.
Could take time, though.
It was going to take time. The time is not what we've got, because we don't give any manager enough time, apart from Poch, who had 5 years and it ended badly. That's my answer. Final answer. I'm not even going to phone a friend. Sean, there you go. You've had 3 opinions now.
No, it's just interesting, because obviously in the stadium on Saturday, people have made their mind up with the Pochettino chants, which were obviously aimed at Levy, who conveniently was absent on the other side of the world for that game. But interesting. I mean, I have to say, I can understand Pav's enthusiasm. There's no doubt about it. The football we played under Pochettino, with young players, with, players prepared to die for the shirt, was spectacular. But there are three things that make me say I don't want to see you back yet, Maurizio. One, you were the one who said winning an FA Cup or winning a Carabao Cup is all about ego.
Yeah.
You set in place, I'm only interested in the league and the Champions League.
Terrible.
And what happened was you put unrealistic expectations on the players that they had to aspire to those competitions and forget. I mean, he played Son as left wing back in an FA Cup semi-final. He also picked our second choice goalkeeper in Vorm in an FA Cup.
Remember one of the biggest crimes, Sean. Champions League semi-final to final. Harry Kane wasn't fit. Harry Kane started. That was, for me, that was
Harry Kane could have started, but Lucas didn't start is I think more of the issue.
Yeah, but so that's what I mean. Okay. Harry Kane should never have started that game.
Yeah.
He weren't fit. He wasn't fit. But that's, again, I saw that and I thought, you've done yourself here, mate. It doesn't matter if you've done yourself here.
All right. That was just my first point, right? He brought in this idea that the domestic cups don't count. Losing to Colchester. But people have forgotten that. We lost to Colchester in the Carabao Cup. Number two, the players that, as Darius eloquently has put, the players that threw him under the bus are still there, and some of them are coming back in July, having been spending a year overseas,
enjoying themselves.
They're going to come back with a league title. Trophies. Literally going to come back with a league title.
Yeah.
Why are they going to want to come back? They're going to be like, oh my God, I've got to go back there. Because that's how I'd feel now. If I was Ndombele, I'd feel, my God, I've got to go back to Spurs. If I was Winks, oh my God. Winks not so much because he's a Spurs player. So I could imagine that he'd want to come back and prove himself. Lo Celso, Ndombele.
Spence.
You can't tell me that these players want to come back to Spurs. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Okay, so there you are. You've got the players who, as we've all agreed here, need to take responsibility for what's gone wrong in the last wee while. And until those players are gone, until Son is gone, until Kane is gone, I don't want to see Maurizio on the sidelines.
I agree, because that's a rebuild. He's a rebuild manager.
He's a rebuild manager, and we have to have vibes of 2014.
I agree 100. That's good. Some really good points there, Sean. Really good points from all of you on that one, actually, because as I said, the Poch thing is doing the circle. He's doing the circuit. Everybody's got an opinion about him, and it is probably split right down the middle with it, because people are saying the football. We want the football, but if you remember, the football towards the end wasn't that good. It really wasn't. You know, we had Ericsson just kind of not doing what I know players were the attitude, but we persisted in certain things and it was just not right. And as I said, for me, that Champions League semi-final where Lucas Moore, who, again, that was his pinnacle. That was when he was at his best for us.
He should have played in the final and then be sold that summer.
100%. And he could have started that final and he probably would have had, with his hindsight, but he would have been motivated. You can't tell me that semi-final that we won, a player who's done that, and then to be told, you know what, our golden boy's playing, he's not fit, but he's going to play. Oh, what? That kills players. It kills players. I don't care how professional you are, you just cannot be motivated after that. You can't. If you tell me that anytime he's injured, I might play, but anytime he's 50 to 60% fit, he's going to play. What is it that I'm doing here? And we've seen that this season. Players have been played constantly when they've been atrocious.
Do you not think that Son has an appearance clause in his contract?
Yep.
I think if he's fit, he plays.
Yep.
That is shocking. That is shocking.
If he does,
he's been dreadful all season. From the Southampton game, he was missing sitters in that game.
It's either that or it is because of he's the face of Korea, isn't he? So again, from a commercial perspective, the more Son's on the pitch, the more commercial revenue. Effectively, we sell more shirts in Korea. If he's not on the pitch, they don't support Spurs. The people that come to watch Son, they don't come to support Spurs. It's just a bit of a combination because he's there. If he goes on anywhere else, them fans will go with him. I can almost guarantee the ones that follow Son specifically, because they're only there to support him. He's a national hero. He's as big a face in Korea as, I don't know who you can compare him
just
to
as
here.
big as BTS, like BTS in Korea.
There you go.
He's
So
a massive
that's the-
star. I think that's actually a good point, to be fair. I think, you know, a lot of people, when I went to the home game, I didn't realize, you know, the sheer amount of South Korean support they actually had in the stadium, let alone, you know, in the country, in their country. So, I mean, people coming probably either they're living in England, they're coming from Korea, whatever that is, but they're paying to see Son. You know, if Son has a 6-game stretch where he doesn't play, that might, you know, as much as it may not impact it heavily on the revenue, it may bring it down. And I do think there is an element of that. However, what I would say to that, and this is probably a conversation for another day. If we were to choose between Son and Kane, who we were to get rid of, I would get rid of Kane first. I would keep Son and I would get rid of Kane despite the season he had. I would get rid of Kane and keep Son. But we would have to save that. I know I should have probably opened that box.
We have to save that one, because not for me, fam. Not for me, fam. No, not for me. If we don't have Kane, we are done. And he's going next year. He's going at the end of next summer. He's staying here this season. Unless we get a stupid offer in that Daniel Levy can't refuse, he's staying. But it's only in this country.
Yeah, but Daniel Levy refuses all offers.
There you go.
We could have got £40,000 for Eric Dyer from Manchester United.
So he's staying. Kane's going to stay because he's probably 2 seasons away from breaking that record. He's 2 seasons.
What's he on now?
206 or 205?
206.
Something like that. 206.
Oh, that's 4 seasons. 4 seasons. 4 seasons.
Remember, this season hasn't done yet. I think he'll get another 5 goals before the end of this season for me.
And then he has to get 50, 51 or 52, whatever it is.
If he gets another
4 seasons, he'll get it in 4 seasons.
4? Nah, man. 3 seasons at the most. And that's what I'm thinking, that he's going to stay in. 4 seasons. Kane's going to get a lot of goals. He's going to get a lot of goals.
I don't even. I mean, he doesn't need to stay with Spurs to get that record, though.
No, that's what I'm saying. So, but he needs to be in this country to get that record. So, Manchester United or Chelsea, let's not forget it. And I'm going to throw this one at that. I've said it 3 times on this show before. He could walk to Arsenal next year, like Solcamp. He could walk across the road and go there, and they would love it. They would absolutely.
See that picture? I'm not going to
start.
Let's not talk about it. That's not happening. That's not happening.
Right, let's finish this show. Get rid of Kane. It's relegation. Yep, I 100% agree. It's close to fighting relegation because we ain't got no goal scorers in this team. Son, nah. He's not Kane. Pav, final thoughts. It's been a great one, by the way, but I'll have some final thoughts from you, whatever they may be.
Spurs need a rebuild. That's what my final thoughts are, okay? We need to start from the bottom, work our way up again, okay?
There's a tune there. Drake done that.
But, yeah, if it's the next 8 games, let's see what happens now, whether we get top 4 or not. I'm over it, if I'm being completely honest. I'm over this season now. But in terms of who we get in, I agree with you, Darius. I think we're going to get Rodgers or Potter. Not that I want him, but it's going to be interesting. But who I want, my top 2, Nagelsmann and company. So, yeah.
Good choices. Darius, final thoughts.
I think Pav pretty much said everything I was going to say. I think, again, if we're looking at overall what we've discussed, me and Sean, have the same notion that, and I think Sam, you've almost said the doom and gloom is inevitable, but I've said we can potentially hold that doom and gloom for maybe a few more years if we make the right appointments in that manager position. However, again, just to echo what Pav said, my expectations and what I want, I am almost 100% sure on this now. And you mentioned Eddie Howe's probably also if he doesn't make it into the Champions League, for me, it's inevitable that it's going to be Rodgers or Potter. I think both of them have the only reason to come to Tottenham at the moment is to get your career back on track. And they're the 2 managers who need to get the career back on track. Even like a Steven Gerrard, wouldn't be surprised if that happened as well. But again, I think I agree again with Pav. Maybe I would put De Zerbi above Kompany, but it would be very, very, very close between the two. I'd say you could switch them. But for me, Nagelsmann's still my number one. And it seems, just from what people are saying, that he is the board or whoever it is who's looking to bring in the next manager. It does seem like he is their number one. I think the Chelsea conversations threw them off a bit, but it seems like he is still their number one choice. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it was great talking about it. I think, like you said, Sam, it doesn't matter, but I do want to see it. I do want to see the right manager come in, like that was just the right person to at least know that I'm going to get to watch and enjoy Spurs, and something could happen. Like you said, maybe that false hope that Arsenal had for the last 3 years really gave them, some sort of incentive to push on. Maybe you just need that bit of luck and that bit of authority for somebody to make a decision and say, right, get rid of them, bring in this person, and get who you want. And I don't know who it's going to be, but De Zerbi, Nagelsmann, it's not going to be them.
You touched on that last bit about this season, Arsenal being. I said this at the very start. This was always going to be a funny season, akin to when we were battling against Leicester for the title and we came third in the tourist race, as people like to say. This season is exactly the same. We've had a World Cup, which seems like it was a million years ago now.
We had a World Cup.
We had a World Cup seems like a million years ago. That was smack bang in the season. We've had a condensed period. We've had some wildness in terms of management change. We've had some wildness in terms of results. We've seen Liverpool, Chelsea. Where are they? You know what I mean? They've.
I mean, look at Leicester and look at West Ham. I mean,
Leicester battling relegation. All them teams within about 2 or 3 points between 11th to relegation. There's about 4 or 5 points in it, so anybody could still go down. It's a proper topsy-turvy season, and this is why I said at the very beginning, we have a good chance. And I said we were going to either win the league or the Champions League. They clipped me up on Armory TV. They did that. But I'm looking at it now. We are in 5th place, and we can all agree it's been awful. And we still have a good chance to get 4th, even with no manager, even with what we've had this season with the toxicity and all the rest of it. We could still effectively get 4th. Now, getting things right and getting Conte right and doing a little bit more for him, 10 more points, where would we be? Because 10 more points is not out of the realms of possibility given some of the results we had. Look where we would have been. It just makes me sad. It makes me sad because I know it doesn't matter who we appoint now. If things haven't changed from top to bottom and some of these players don't go, we're going to be here doing the same thing next year. When we come on these shows, we'll have some great results. We'll have some terrible results. We'll go out of the cups. We won't win anything. Will we be top 4? Will we be battling for Europa? And this is what this cycle is doing to me. Sean.
Yeah, good chat as ever. Lots to discuss, and always is in Tottenham Hotspur world. I mean, I totally agree with what Pav says. We are in a rebuild situation. The more I think about who I'd like, I probably steer towards Kompany. Maybe Gallardo, the guy that's just been put up on there, who doesn't speak English, so it would be very, very much shades of Pochettino, or Slot. I don't want to see Maurizio back. I don't want to see Rodgers or Potter try and rebuild their reputation with our football club. I want us to think about going for all the trophies. And if we get Pochettino back, that we know that he's already ruled 2 of the 4 trophies out. I just want us to play better, progressive football. I want the football of Pochettino. I don't want Pochettino. I want us to be
happy.
I want to see the style of football which is winning trophies across the world. No one's winning football playing counter-attack football. It's just too much. It's just too much to bear. This season has been a chore. The World Cup hasn't helped, and anyone would struggle with the injury list that we finished up with post the World Cup.
Yeah.
The loss of Bentancur cannot be underestimated. That player made the two in midfield work. And Conte's stubbornness and his recklessness is responsible for the fact that he burnt his own bridges. The only time we played the three in the middle was to wreak control back from Brendan Rodgers' Leicester at home. When we brought on Basuma, we had three in midfield. We took control of the game. Son went and scored a hat-trick. I rest my case. Conte got what he deserved, the tin tack. He got what he deserved. And I'm not having it with these super coaches who moan and deflect and blame the fans or blame the players or blame the management and take no responsibility themselves. As I called him earlier, and it will be forever in my sight as the Turin troll. Nah, Conte is a fraud, just like Jose's a fraud. Super managers, don't go there. Give me a project manager.
Yeah, they weren't the right fits. Jose, looking back, Jose was actually okay in terms of what we've seen, but he wasn't the right fit because we didn't do what we needed to do for him. He'd gone to Roma and he's gone and got what he needs. He got a trophy. That's all he wanted to do. He just wants to win. So that mentality should have put itself into these.
And he's
players.
been chased out of Rome this season.
Yeah, but that's always going to be the case because he's got a history of doing that. Every club he's been to, he eventually has that. And Conte's the same. But what they did do in that interim was they won. And that's all we wanted. That's why they took them risks to get their managers, whether it blew the whole club up. But the problem we've got is we brought those two managers in, we brought in Nuno, we blew the club up, and we're not won anything. We've got nothing to show for it. Parchy's going to go to Chelsea, in my opinion, because that will be a good fit for him. And the reason I say it's a good fit for him, because they have got a project there. He needs to get rid of a lot of players, and he's already had that PSG experience in terms of big mentalities, big players, and I think he'd be a good fit for them. We are going to end up with either Brendan Rodgers or Graham Potter. Those two are probably going to prime themselves to get the England job, because I think Brendan Rodgers could be a good England manager, and so is Graham Potter. But Eddie Howe, I think, would probably be, ultimately, that's where he's going to end up as England manager, but not for now, because I think he's got a lot to do in his club career, and he's another potential manager. Whew, a lot there. Guys, thank you very much. It's been fantastic. 1 hour, 18 minutes. We don't usually go this long anymore, but I think we had to do it. Sean knocked it on the head when he said, we need to talk. We did need to talk. We definitely needed to talk. I didn't realise how much I needed to talk. I wasn't even looking at Spurs for the last couple of weeks, but
it'll be interesting when the appeal is heard next week, because that will give us a little bit more insight of where we're going to go. You know, there's plenty things happening off the field which will probably take my attention more than what's happening on the field, because we're going to get our asses handed to us by Newcastle, Manchester United, and Liverpool in 3 successions. We ain't getting top 4.
We've got to go through them preview and reaction shows yet, Sean. Don't do that to me. Not now. We still got to bloody get through Bournemouth. This is what I'm saying. If Brian could come to our bloody place and do that, Bournemouth are not at the same level. I know they're fighting, but they're fighting for relegation. They're fighting relegation.
Did you see the way they played at the weekend?
I know. This is what I'm saying. I know.
That Billings, what a player.
Can't understand how players cannot be motivated. How can our players not be as motivated as some of these other players and clubs? Doesn't make any sense to me, because it's too nice. Spurs is too nice. They're comfortable. They have nothing to play for. Nagelsmann will go to Chelsea. It's either Nagelsmann or Poch, in my opinion. Predictions for Bournemouth, we'll do that another day. Not doing that now. We'll know.
I think have we not got a preview show tomorrow night?
Yeah, Sid's got that sorted out. I want to know what Levy promised Conte. Money. He promised him he'll pay him his contract. That's what he promised him. That's the only thing he promised him. Trust me, we will beat Newcastle. I don't know about that, mate. We'll see.
David Clark, what are you on?
David Clark's on the same thing. He's always on. He's the best. For certain comments, he's fantastic, David. Thanks, David. Thanks, Kevin Murray. We've got a few people in there. Tottenham Andy, Paulino's in the house as well. Who else? We've got Ken.
Dino.
Good Beats Entertainment. Thank you for watching. It's been good. Spursy 141. Our own judge Jodi's been in the house as well, looking and seeing what Tom Lowry, as always, good mate of our friend Sean. So Mojo, Terence Sampson, not seen him before. Wayne Bonner, seen you a number of times, but Pav, Sean, it's been emotional. It's been emotional. And he's still going to get more emotions to come before the end of the season, because as Sean did do that, and I don't like him for that. We got Newcastle, Man United, and then Liverpool, and the 3 in a row. Dr. Tottenham will see you very, very soon. Last comment then before we go, and I think it's probably the best one. Come on, you Spurs. That's the only thing we can say.
Come on, you Spurs.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It's a good quote. We have to try because otherwise it's very, very depressing. That's it, guys. What have we got outro-wise? Let's see. This is countdown. Now I'm going to just do the normal outro. I think of the talking points. We'll see you on the WhatsApp. We'll have a more chat. Positive vibes, Pav. God, you're going to have to change your name to sometimes. Sometimes positive vibes, Pav. You can't be positive vibes, Pav. You're going to have to put an S in front of that. SPVP. Sometimes positive vibes, Pav.
At least you brought some sense tonight.
She did bring lots of sense. Darius as well. Thank you on the show as well. Sean, thank you
Darius,
as always. Yeah. That's it. I'm gone. Thank you very much, guys. See you later. Like, subscribe, comment as you've done. Look out for PRTv and there's someone we changed, but it's all going to be the same. Just look out for it. That's it. Too much talking. Bye.
It's just different.